It is Thram. You have been awake since 1. Before that you were awake at 11. Before that you were awake at 9 and you never really fell back to sleep properly in between. Because some part of your brain stopped trusting silence the moment you brought this baby home. You are not tired. Tired is something you felt before this. What you are now does not have a word yet, and you are standing over a crib, or sitting in a chair, or lying in the dark staring at a ceiling, asking the same question you have asked every night since your baby arrived. Why won't they just sleep? Here is the answer. The real one. Not a method, not a schedule, not another person's opinion about what worked for their baby. The actual biological answer to why your newborn keeps waking up, and what you can do tonight that works with their biology instead of against it. Your newborn is not waking up because something is wrong. They are not waking up because you are doing something wrong. They are not broken sleepers. They are not manipulating you. They are not forming bad habits that will follow them into childhood. They are waking up because something is working exactly the way it was designed to work. A newborn's sleep system is not a malfunctioning version of adult sleep. It is a completely different system, built for completely different purposes, doing exactly what it is supposed to do. The problem is not your baby's sleep. The problem is that nobody explained to you what your baby's sleep actually is. And without that understanding, nothing you try will make consistent sense, because you are trying to solve a problem you have never been given the real picture of. Here is the real picture. Every time your newborn wakes at night, their nervous system is asking a question. Not consciously, not deliberately. But at a deep biological level, every time they cross from one sleep cycle to the next, their developing nervous system runs a quick check. Is everything the same as when I fell asleep? Am I safe? Is the person I need still here? There are 5 specific things that answer those questions clearly enough for a newborn nervous system to settle back into sleep instead of surfacing into a full wake. 5 things. Rooted in biology. Backed by research. And none of them are about schedules. Newborn sleep is nothing like adult sleep. An adult sleep cycle runs roughly 90 minutes. A newborn sleep cycle runs 40 to 50 minutes. Which means your newborn is crossing a sleep cycle boundary, the moment of lightest sleep where waking is most likely almost twice as often as you are. And during that boundary crossing, a newborn does something that adults do not. They partially rouse. They come up to a level of light consciousness that is not quite awake, but not deeply asleep either. And in that liminal moment, their nervous system runs its check. If the conditions feel the same as when they fell asleep, if the answer to the check comes back clear, they slide back down into the next cycle without fully waking. If the conditions feel different, if the check comes back uncertain, they wake completely, and they tell you about it. Understanding this one mechanism, the sleep cycle check, is the foundation of everything that actually helps newborn sleep extend. Because now you know what you are actually trying to do. You are not trying to force sleep. You are trying to make the check come back clear. Thing 1. The feed-to-wake distinction. Most parents end the last feed of the evening the same way, with a baby who has fallen asleep at the breast or the bottle and is gently transferred to their sleep space. This feels right. The baby is asleep. The transfer worked. Everyone is calm. But here is what the research shows. A baby who falls asleep during a feed associates sleep with feeding, which means that when they cross their first sleep cycle boundary and run their check, and feeding is not happening, the conditions feel different from when they went down. And the check comes back uncertain. The alternative, keeping the baby awake through the last feed and allowing them to fall asleep in their sleep space without an active feed, means they fall asleep in the conditions they will find when they check, which makes the check far more likely to come back clear. This is called the feed-to-wake distinction. And shifting it for just the final feed of the evening, not every feed, just the last one, can make a measurable difference to how long the first stretch of night sleep lasts. Thing 2. The darkness and melatonin window. Melatonin is the hormone that tells the brain it is time to sleep. Adults produce their own, newborns do not in meaningful amounts. In the early weeks, a breastfed baby receives melatonin directly through breast milk, and the melatonin in evening breast milk is significantly higher than in daytime milk, a biological signal from mother to baby that night is coming and sleep is appropriate. For formula-fed babies, this melatonin transfer does not happen, which makes the environmental darkness signal even more important. What suppresses melatonin in both mother and baby is light, specifically blue spectrum light, the kind that comes from overhead lights, screens, and most standard household lighting. Evening light exposure in the hour before sleep reduces melatonin production and delays the biological readiness for sleep in a newborn nervous system. Dimming lights significantly in the hour before your baby's sleep and keeping night feeds as dark as safely possible protects the melatonin window that makes sleep biologically easier for your baby to enter and maintain. This is not about blackout curtains. This is about what happens to the hormone that makes sleep possible when light gets in the way. Thing 3. The contact nap and overnight proximity. The newborn nervous system did not evolve to sleep alone. For the vast majority of human history, babies slept in physical contact with their caregivers. The warmth, the smell, the sound of breathing and heartbeat, these are not comforts. They are biological signals, inputs that tell a newborn nervous system that the check has come back clear, that the safe person is present, that sleep continuation is safe. Research consistently shows that newborns sleep longer and with more stable physiology, more regulated heart rate, more stable temperature, calmer breathing, in close proximity to a caregiver than they do in a separate sleep space. This does not mean sharing a sleep surface. Safe sleep guidelines exist for important reasons, and following them is non-negotiable. A firm, flat, separate sleep surface with no soft bedding is the safest environment for a newborn to sleep in. But proximity within a room, a bedside bassinet, a co-sleeper that attaches safely to the adult bed, gives a newborn nervous system enough of the biological closeness signal to make the sleep cycle check more likely to come back clear. Keeping your newborn in your room, not in your bed, but in your room, is something the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends for at least the first 6 months. The biology of why it helps with sleep is exactly what you just heard. Thing 4. The wind-down sequence. What happens in the 60 minutes before your newborn's sleep determines how deeply they enter that sleep and how long the first cycle lasts. A newborn brought from a stimulating, brightly lit, active environment directly into a sleep attempt is a newborn whose nervous system is still running at day mode speed. The cortisol from stimulation does not drop instantly. The brain does not switch modes on command. A consistent wind-down sequence, the same steps in the same order every night, does something specific to the newborn brain over time. It becomes a signal, a predictable sequence of events that the nervous system begins to recognize as meaning sleep is coming. Begin to slow down. It is safe to let go. The sequence does not need to be long or complicated. Dim the lights, warm bath if that works for your baby. Skin contact, feed, sleep space, same order, every night. The consistency is the tool. Thing 5. The resettle window. This is the one that most parents never hear about. And it is the most immediately actionable thing in this entire video. When a newborn crosses a sleep cycle boundary and begins to stir before they reach full waking, there is a window. Roughly 60 seconds, sometimes less. A window in which a gentle, minimal intervention, a hand on the chest, a soft shush, a slight repositioning can tip the nervous system back down into the next sleep cycle without a full wake occurring. Most parents wait. They hear the stir and they lie, still hoping it will resolve, or they rush in immediately and in doing so bring the baby to full wakefulness. The resettle window requires something different. Immediate but minimal response. Getting close quickly but intervening gently. Providing just enough of a signal, warmth, presence, sound to answer the nervous system's check before the check escalates into a full wake cry. This takes practice. It takes learning what your specific baby's pre-wake sounds and movements look like. But parents who learn their baby's resettle window and respond within it consistently report the single biggest improvement in overnight wake frequency of any strategy they have tried. Not because it forces sleep, because it answers the question before it becomes a demand. This needs to be said clearly, because it often gets left out of the sleep conversation. Chronic sleep deprivation at the level most new parents experience does not just make life harder. It measurably impairs memory, emotional regulation, decision-making, and patience. The exact 4 things that caring for a newborn requires most. A depleted parent is not able to read their baby's cues as accurately, is not able to respond as calmly, is not able to be as present during the waking hours that matter so much for the baby's development. This is not about you. It is about what your baby needs from you when you are both awake. Getting more sleep is not selfish. It is part of the job. Every night you have spent exhausted and confused and convinced you must be missing something obvious. You were not missing something obvious. You were missing information that nobody gave you. The biology of newborn sleep is not taught in prenatal classes. It is not explained at the 6-week check. It is not in most of the advice that gets handed to new parents from every direction. You were given methods. Nobody gave you the understanding that makes methods make sense. You were not doing it wrong. You were doing it without the full picture. Now you have more of it. Here is where the parenting world divides loudly. Can you sleep train a newborn? One side says that gentle sleep training approaches, teaching a baby to fall asleep independently through gradual methods, can begin earlier than most people think. That the earlier healthy sleep associations are built the better for everyone. The other side says that the newborn nervous system is too immature for any form of sleep training to be appropriate or effective. That before 12 weeks at the earliest, a baby's sleep is governed entirely by biology, and that attempting to train it causes stress without producing results. The research strongly supports the second position. A newborn's sleep is not a behavior. It is a biological process run by a nervous system that is not yet capable of self-regulation. Sleep training in any form requires a level of neurological development that most newborns simply do not have yet. What works in the newborn period is not training. It is understanding. And responding to that understanding with the 5 things you just heard. Sleep researchers use a term called the arousal threshold. It describes how much neurological stimulation it takes to bring a sleeping person from deep sleep to full waking. In adults, the arousal threshold is relatively high. We sleep through sounds, through movement, through the body's own natural sleep cycle transitions. In newborns, the arousal threshold is intentionally low. This is a survival feature. A newborn that is difficult to wake is a newborn that cannot signal for help when it needs feeding or comfort or temperature regulation. The goal of every strategy in this video is not to lower that arousal threshold. It cannot and should not be lowered. It is to make the sleep cycle check come back clear consistently enough that the arousal threshold does not get triggered in the first place. You are not fighting your newborn's biology. You are working inside it. That distinction is everything. If this is the first time newborn sleep has made biological sense to you, this channel is exactly where you need to be. Real science. Plain language, nothing to sell you. Hit subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Here is how to put all 5 things together into one simple nightly sequence. 60 minutes before sleep, begin the wind down. Dim every light in the space. Reduce noise and stimulation. Move to a quieter, calmer environment. Let the nervous system begin to read the signal that night is coming. 40 minutes before sleep, warm bath if your baby responds well to it. Not every baby does. Some become more alert after a bath. Know your baby. For those who settle with warm water, this is a powerful cortisol-lowering step that prepares the nervous system for sleep entry. 30 minutes before sleep, skin contact and feed. This is the feed-to-wake feed. Keep your baby awake through it. Talk quietly. Maintain gentle stimulation, not enough to alert, enough to prevent sleep. The goal is a fed baby who is drowsy but has not yet crossed into sleep. At sleep time, place in sleep space drowsy but awake. In a room sharing arrangement with a safe, separate sleep surface. Use your voice, low, slow, repetitive, to walk them across the threshold. Stay close until breathing changes and sleep has genuinely arrived. During the night, learn the resettle window. When you hear stirring, move quickly but respond minimally. A hand, a sound, a presence. Give the nervous system its answer before the check becomes a cry. If hunger is the cause, and it often is in the early weeks, feed promptly and keep the feed as calm and dark as safely possible. You are not failing at getting your baby to sleep. You are learning to speak a language nobody taught you. The language of a nervous system that is brand new to the world and is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. Checking, asking, needing, while you figure out in real time how to answer it. That is not failure. That is one of the hardest and most important things a human being can do. And you are doing it. Every night. Without enough sleep, without enough help, without enough information. Until now, every night you survive with your newborn is a night you gave them exactly what their developing nervous system needed. Even the nights where nothing worked. Even the nights where you sat on the floor and cried a little. Even the nights where you handed them to someone else and lay down for 20 minutes because you had genuinely reached the absolute end. Those nights count too. Because you showed up. You answered the check. You were the warm, present, familiar thing their nervous system was searching for at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when the whole world was dark and quiet and they needed proof that safety was still there. You were the proof. Every single night. That is not nothing. That is everything a newborn needs from the person they have just arrived to. And you gave it, even on the nights it did not feel like enough. It was always enough. If this gave you something real tonight, share it with a parent who is in the thram dark right now. And subscribe, because your baby is growing and changing every single week. And understanding what is happening inside that growth is the most powerful thing you can give both of you.